Who's right? Have we started?
They're right.
I need a countdown.
He'll do it.
That wasn't a countdown. It was something very different.
Arnold has to
We
monitor.
have to have a conversation about that.
Oh my goodness. So this is just a slideshow, right? You just go like that. No, get the mouse out of the way. Did he get the stream going?
Are we live?
I don't know. As soon as Arnold gets the stream going, we'll be all right.
We are live. Are we live? Can somebody? I heard there's a very faded out kind of a 3, 2, 1. Are we good? I don't think we're good yet. We're good. Okay, welcome back. Right now we're going to have a presentation on Script.It by John Hickey and Mary Wade. They will be demonstrating the best software ever written in 8 minutes.
8 minutes.
Well, okay, so they're going to demonstrate it in 8 minutes. I think the actual writing of it might have taken a bit longer.
A little bit longer.
Welcome, John and Mary.
Okay, so 2 years ago we introduced Script.It, and this year we're introducing the new Script.It. And so we're going to show you a little bit. I don't know how many people are familiar with Script.It. Raise your hand if you're familiar with Script.It. Okay, so hey, there's a few people, but a few people are not. So we're going to kind of review what Script.It does, why we think you can use it, and then we'll show you some of the new interface and some of the new things that are in it. So, by the way, yeah, we got introduced so we know who we are, right?
Yeah.
Mary, John. Which one's which? Mary, John. Okay, so here's what we're going to cover. We're going to talk about what SQL Script.It does. What does it do? Why would you use it? And then we're going to take a little tour, just what I just said. And then we're going to demonstrate some features.
Boy, this presentation has gotten redundant.
This is a redundant presentation. Okay, so here's what it does. So earlier today, we talked about why you should go to SQL. And then we talked about how to convert to SQL. And that gets us to, now that I've converted, what do I do to maintain it? And one of the questions asked earlier was, how do you update scripts for your customers as your program grows, does new things, has new features? And the answer was, well, we distribute scripts out to take care of these updates. What's going to happen is when you convert to SQL, you're going to start learning SQL. And as people mentioned in earlier presentations, there's a lot of things SQL can do better than Clarion can do, because you're doing it on the server, and it's got its own language, and you can do updates and things such as that much quicker. So you end up having things like views, and everyone should know what a view is, stored procedures, functions, and triggers. And stored procedures are things that, it's a procedure, just like a Clarion procedure. You call it, and it does something. It might update a bunch of tables, it might copy things over, it can just do all sorts of different things. Just like you would call a Clarion procedure, same with the function. And a trigger is something that, again, just like in Clarion, if you do an add or a delete or a change, you can have a trigger do something else, such as log that, hey, an add was done, or that kind of thing. So if you're debugging, that's really handy. So you end up having all these things, and then you go, okay, I'm going to write a new report. That requires a new view. And I'm going to do the view on the SQL Server because it's going to be more efficient to do it on the SQL Server. Or I'm going to write a trigger so that when I add an invoice, it also updates my sales totals. So have SQL do that instead of your program, everything speeds up. So those things have to get distributed out. And what a lot of people do is just end up with a lot of text files, which are scripts, and then they load them in and run them, I guess, in Clarion. You can end up with a whole bunch of scripts just laying around in folders. So what Script.It does is let you database those scripts, basically, so that it kind of brings it into Script.It, It comes in a nice format so you can understand where they are. You can find them quickly. You can search them quickly. You can edit them. You can version them so that as you make changes to a script, you commit it, and then you deploy a single file to your customers, and your Clarion program sees that file, does the updates it needs to do, and moves on. So it makes it very, very easy to keep track of what scripts are going out and get everybody updated the way they should be. Right. Okay, so that's kind of the overview. We provide tools within Script.It to search for your scripts. Mary, I know you use the searching like all the time.
I use the searching all the time because if you've ever tried to search things in Management Studio, it's not like a simple situation. And even the other day I was like, there was a misspelling and it was to do with, it was case sensitive. I could tell where it was coming from by the case it was in, and I was like, oh, well that's interesting script to try to write in SQL Server to find that. So we've added some tools into Script.It in order to make that a really quick process.
Right, and it will search across everything, views, stored procedures, function triggers, and then show up in a list, kind of like you're used to in Clarion. It'll show up in a little search list, and you click on it, and you can see the scripts like immediately.
And you can find it in multiple projects. So if you have similar structures in multiple projects that you work on, and you're looking for maybe something that had proliferated throughout your whole multiple projects, you can find it everywhere.
Exactly. Yep, and we'll talk about what projects are in just a minute. Okay, so you can create new scripts, you can add scripts, you can track versions. We talked about that. Versions are pretty important because you could deploy a script that breaks things. So you want to roll back to a version that you already did that you know works. So as you commit scripts that are going to go out, it becomes a version, and then you can look back in those versions and see what changes that you've done and all that kind of thing. In the new Script.It, we've added extended properties because like most tools that people write, they write it for themselves, right? So one of the things I've become interested in is extended properties and how you can use that to database or to document your database, right? So it would travel with your database and people can print out reports about it and understand what your tables do and all that kind of thing. We have written a template that will take your existing Clarion database, and if you've got descriptions in there, it will export them so that Script.It can read that and put it into the extended properties in your SQL database. So if you've already got some documentation going in your Clarion dictionary, it makes it really easy to start your documentation using extended properties in your SQL database. And how many, I don't know, I'm going to back up just a moment. One of the things that people were talking about today a lot was Postgres. We are MS SQL, pretty much that's it. We looked at doing Postgres, but it's very different from the way we're approaching things, and I'm not sure that we'll ever have a Postgres. But we're very focused on MS SQL, and it works very well there, so I just wanted to kind of point that out. Okay, but one of the things about MS SQL is this extended properties. How many people are familiar with extended properties? Most people? Nobody? A few people? Okay, yeah. Extended properties are really, really neat, but they're very difficult to work with. In Management Studio, it takes a lot to kind of get them put in there, and I don't know if I have time to show why they're kind of difficult to manage, but this makes it easy to manage them. I can add an extended property to every table in seconds, and then I could put values in them very, very fast. So this was kind of something I was really excited about. You can use those extended properties to create database documentation. We showed this in a Clarion Live webinar where we showed the StimulSoft report writer. We've added that into Script.It, and it gives you some really nice printed out documentation. And we're going to take a look at that as well today. And then maybe. And then we export scripts. This is the important part, is that when you distribute things out, first of all, you don't want people messing with your scripts. So distributing a text file is kind of a dangerous thing because somebody could actually go and modify that text file in their company if they don't like their boss or something. And then you run the program and it executes the script and everything's gone. So we thought, okay, we should make it encrypted. So it uses a top speed encrypted file. It's a single file that you distribute, not a whole bunch of individual scripts. And when you run your program, again, we have a template that takes care of this for you. You basically say, I need to see what changes have been made since the last time. We track the versions on each individual's customer's machine. And it says, yeah, version 1, got it, got it, got it. Oh, version 3, I don't. It executes the script and updates you to version 3. So all the versioning and stuff is all handled with that single file.
And it's easy because it exports right out of where you're managing all your versions. So I'm sure there's no other programmers in the room like this, but sometimes I forget to export certain changes that I made, and it's easy to have built something upon an underlying, a view or a function, and then forget to ship the function that the view is dependent on out with your product. So this eliminates the human error. Not that any exists in this room, but if it did, this handles it.
This takes care of it, right? It does dependency checking and make sure that you're getting everything out there that you need to get out there. Why would you use Script.It? Your MS SQL applications lets Clarion create tables. We've added a new feature where Script.It can create the tables for you, which is, again, a SQL script. So advice is to not let Clarion create your tables in the SQL database. So then you're just kind of like, okay, so how do I do it then? And then you have to there's some third-party templates, there's some free templates, I think, that will export your dictionary to a SQL script, basically, that you would then run. Script.It handles that for you.
And even if you were brave enough to let Clarion create all your tables for you, there's a lot of objects that'll be in your database that Clarion doesn't have in the dictionary at all. So how are you going to create those? Make sure that your customer has 100% of what they need for your program to start running at the beginning.
Exactly. You can add or change views, store procedures. We talked about that. And you want to distribute those changes out, which should be almost anybody using MS SQL. The more you use it, I mean, we switched over to SQL, I don't know how many years ago, 6, 8 years ago, and started with just a few, started learning about triggers, started learning about views, started adding views in, making reports. Now we've got 200 or so.
A lot.
A lot. Mary just writes stuff I don't know. She's prolific. So we have tons and tons of things to keep track of now, and it will grow for you too. You'll just get more and more things in your program. If you want to document it with extended properties, you would want to use it. And if you want to create reports, because we're including the report designer in StimulSoft for Clarion people. And then we had some future plans. So far, it's all PowerPoint. Future plans. This is cool stuff. We want to do, okay, say you've got 100 users and you distribute an update, right? You want to know if all those updates worked. So we want to be able to have the end user basically report back to you that the new scripts that you just deployed work, right? Or it might come back and say, all these work, but company number 63 failed. So you know that now. They're not out there running your program. One of the scripts didn't run, and so now things aren't working for them. You would have to go back and try to figure out why it wasn't working for them. You'd probably assume the script is running okay, but you might take a while to get to that point where, oh, it's because the script isn't there, or it doesn't have the update, or whatever.
And I mean, imagine the customer support where you can call the customer and say, I detected that there was a problem with your installation. I would like to correct that before you feel the effects of it.
Exactly. Which is like number 3, which is the ability to push scripts to specific end users. So if someone did have a problem, we want Script.It to be able to just say, that customer needs to have this fixed. And so I want to push it to him, and then the next time they run the program, it automatically updates. So we want to be able to do that. We want to be able to lock certain script updates to versions of your program. So you'll have more of a tie between, I just released this version, all of these scripts go with that version. And don't try to run it on an earlier version because I don't have this particular column and it's going to fail, that kind of thing. And we want to be able to add indexes, columns, et cetera, based on versionings. That's going to take a while to figure out, but that's going to be kind of nice.
Plan.
Yes, that's the plan.
We've talked an awful lot about concepts, but why don't we actually show?
What a great idea. Let's do that. How do I get rid of this? Oh,
what do you think? Do you want to see it?
Let's show it.
Well, I can't hear you.
All right. Oh, my goodness. Okay, my display went really high resolution, so I'm going to have to kick this down really quick. Yeah, it's because it's too high a resolution. Okay. Did it come back? plugging it back in again. Probably go back to
While we're waiting, do you want to maybe talk about any special offers or anything? Oh, you're ready to go.
Are we? Oh, good.
Yeah.
Okay. See, that wasn't long. Okay, so when you first run Script.It, one of the things that we've done is we've made it quicker to get up and going. Now, saying that, this part is slow because for some reason when you're looking for servers, it takes it a while to go out and find a server. Oh, I actually knew the name of the server too. I just remember what it was. So we probably didn't have to have this delay, but this is normal for SQL. When you're, I actually haven't figured out any way to make this quicker to find the server. If somebody else knows how to do it, let me know. But it's pretty much a SQL call, and it's looking around, and sometimes it'll pull your network, and it'll just look all sorts of places. But this seems to be slow on a lot of things that I use.
It's really slow everywhere that I've ever tried it.
Yeah.
So I think most of us just remember the name and type it in.
Yeah, I think so too.
But we wanted to demonstrate that there might be a delay at this point.
Exactly. And in this case, it's asking for local, but that's not even really what I wanted to put in. The name of my server is Betty, for no real reason. Now, I use Windows authentication, it makes it simpler. Now, what you're doing here at first is you're just creating where SQL Script.It is going to keep its database. Okay? So you do not want to hook up to an existing database. This is going to create a brand new database, and that's where we're going to store all of the scripts and things. So you can do a test here, and it's always going to fail on this part here where you're running a simple query because there's no database yet. So we know that that's there, so now it's going to go ahead, and it's using Script.It to update itself, which is kind of cool. Come on the little splash screen. It has a little thing that you're loading it, and then up it comes. All right, so this is the new interface, and we've shown this a little bit on Clarion Live as well. A lot of this is using Noyantis templates with CodeJock ActiveX controls. So we've got docking panes in here, and we've got report controls and all sorts of things. It really gives a nice look to the product. It makes it look very modern. And one of the things that we did is really simplify the interface. If you look down here in the bottom right, this is the old interface. I've added help, so when it comes up, you get the help screen, and so that's easy to get to. But this is the older interface, and Arnold looked at it and goes, it looks like you're running two programs side by side. And he was right, because we had kind of divided this up, so I had the docking panes working and that kind of thing. So it's been very much simplified, and we'll kind of go around that in a minute. But yeah, even if you look at the front toolbar, there's only like 4 things, 5 things on there. Keeps it simpler. So the first thing it says is, hey, there aren't any projects defined. And projects are typically databases that you're working with, because you might have several different SQL programs that you distribute. So you want to keep all those separately tracked. For us, we have maybe 4 different ones that are tracked, plus Script.It itself. So I just pick them up as I need them. So we'll go ahead and add a project. So first thing it's going to ask for is the name. And I have a AdventureWorks is pretty standard sample data for SQL. So that's what we're going to do. It automatically fills in the description. If you don't want to bother putting in a description, it will do that. So we work with a master database and a test database. So the difference here is your master database doesn't have to have any data in it. It just has to be your master database. Everything in it is what should be able to be distributed, right? All your tables, all your columns, all your triggers, views, procedures should be what you're going to distribute. And so if you're just getting started, you might already have a test database that you're using. So just use that as a basis for your master database. So what we do is you find the source. And in this case, we're going to use AdventureWorks 2012. I thought I deleted those 2. Oh, I know I didn't. OK. Hold on just one second. I'm going to show you something. OK. What happened is I didn't refresh. All right, so here's Management Studio. We did this last night as a test. I'm going to delete them, so they're not here, so you can see how they work, how they come back up. Okay. All right, so all I've got here is maybe our test sample that we've been working on for years. And now we want to move it into Script.It. So we will just pick that one and hit OK. And then the master database, what it's going to do here is just ask you, what do you want to call your master database? It just guesses that you want to call it whatever the name of it is and _master. So you don't have to do any filling out here. It kind of moves you along pretty quickly. So this is, if you're familiar with SQL, you have physical files that are on the drive. You might want to move them to a different drive than the default where these reside right now. But we're just going to leave everything as is. So I just did a few clicks here, and we're going to create the master database. So what it's doing with the master database now, it's making a backup of the one I selected, and then it's restoring it as a new name with these new MDFs and LDFs. And then it's running a script that's emptying all the data out of it. So there isn't any data inside of the master database. And depending on the size of your database, that can take a while to empty all of those objects. So this is a good time for questions because it's going to take a minute. Oh, it's done. But we can still do questions. Well, we'll keep going. All right. So there's that. And then you want to create your test database. Now, a test database is just kind of a scratch thing, right? You want to, I want to execute the script and see if it's going to run or something like that. So that might be what your program is hooked to while you're developing, right? That can be your test database. So same thing. We're going to pick our 2012. And our test database is going to be the same name with _test. And then we're going to create that. Now, this one will create much quicker because it doesn't have to empty the data out. So it just basically backs it up and then restores it. So that came up pretty fast. All right, so the next steps here is what's your published file name going to be? So you commit your scripts, and then you publish your scripts. When you publish them, it goes into what we call an SSI file, which is SQL Script.It. It's just short for SQL Script.It. So the SSI file is kind of the key. That's what you distribute with your program. And that's what has all your scripts in it, all your table definitions, all these things that Script.It uses down the road to keep everybody updated. So, excuse me. So in this case, I usually actually take the master out of there. And then you might want to say this, where do you want to put it? And I'll just put it in my C:/.
And in our distribution, we put it right in where Setup Builder knows that it's got to pull it, because then you can put the command line into Setup Builder and it just builds it for you without ever having to go into Script.It, as long as you've updated your scripts.
Exactly. Okay. So I'm just going to throw it. I don't even know that we're going to have time to build one because we're almost out of time. So there you go. Okay, so it's gone ahead, and here we go. Import is complete. So you're ready to start using the product right now. In the older version of Script.It, it was not as obvious how to do this, but now it's kind of just steps you through. You got to do this, this is done. I still have to, it's not a complete product, so I still have to refresh this tree in order to see what I've got. So here's our new interface here. So I've got projects here, and AdventureWorks is what we just added. If I expand that, I apologize if it's small, because I think it is kind of small. But, so here's our tables, views, stored procedures, everything's there. So this is what it all brought it in from AdventureWorks. Okay, so if I wanted to edit one of these scripts, I would click on it, and it would come up on the right-hand side. So that's another thing that's different from Management Studio. Management Studio, you got to kind of right-click on it, and then you have to, I want it to give me a script in the clipboard or another thing. Here, you just click, and you're there. All right, you just move right on down. I want to make a change, or I don't, and off you go. Extended properties we had talked about earlier. Here's the extended property that's there. I don't want to mess with that too much right now. But you can see the extended properties that are here. 5 minutes. I have 5 minutes left. Really? I'm surprised I have that much left.
This went fast.
I know. I guess there's just a lot. I'll just kind of go quickly through the interface. We switched over to this tree kind of view, and it's just been phenomenal as far as just a change in how easy the whole thing is to use. I can come here and look at my tables. This is, when you look at the tables, it's reading it directly from the master database and populating it. And what we ended up doing is only showing the information that you need to see. If I had to populate this entire thing, it might take 3-4 minutes, if I loaded it, but it loads on demand. So every time that I click on a plus, it kind of goes to the master database and loads. So here's columns, it just went and loaded them, and there's the columns. So instead of me having to load everything in at once, it does it as you need it to do. So it's got a lot of information in here. There's extended properties for this item. And there's the extended property. So it's just really, really easy to get to extended properties from the tree. But it's also really easy to get to it from the extended properties manager. Sadly, I don't have a lot of time to go through this either, but these are extended properties sorted by schema and the name of the extended property. I use this database, AdventureWorks, because they put extended properties on everything, which makes it really nice to demo. You can see all the things that are filled out. And then if I wanted to print this, I think I can do it from here, but I'm not 100%, so I'm going to do it from here.
In our database, in our production, we have kind of the same set of extended properties across all of the same types of objects. So we want all of our tables to have certain extended properties, and all the columns in the tables to have certain extended properties. If you ever try to do that in SQL, it's not like the easiest thing in Management Studio. But here, when you add an extended property, you can choose an object and say, I want this one to just be on this particular object, or I want it across everything, and I want it to be with this default value. And then if I create a new object and you bring it in, automatically it gets the new property, the new default value, so it's easy to kind of stay up on that.
Yeah, it makes everything consistent across for all of your documentation. And you don't misspell description on one of them so that the report doesn't come out right. So this is, again, Ohnosoft report. It's got the tables. I can click here, and it will go down to that table, and I can look at the documentation for that particular one. I got 2 minutes left, which gives us enough time to go through the specials probably. Okay, so any questions while I pull up something? Yes, Greg. Wait, you got to get a microphone. From somebody.
Awake?
Yeah.
Was I supposed to be awake? Yeah, okay.
This comes with the report designer too, by the way. This is the first report that we've done that's included with the system, but you can also design your own reports based on what we're giving you in Script.It, all the information we're giving you there.
When you search for your database at the beginning, it looked like it was looking for things just on your local area network. Can you point at things across the internet?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yeah, you just have to know the server. You could give you an IP address or however you want to be able to connect it. We've done work with being able to connect to other databases on other servers. I remember we did that.
Yeah, another question, Rick?
When you were dropping the data, did that take into constraint like dependencies? So in other words, if I drop my orders before my details and there's a foreign key or something like that, was it gonna, or does it just go down the line? And
when you're dropping data?
when you're dropping the data, when you created the master.
It did take into account dependencies, yes.
And it also takes into account dependencies when it's creating your objects on your client side when the scripts are run. Which is another annoying thing if you're trying to do it by hand, to make sure that you have everything generating in the correct order.
We also have your dependencies right here in the tree too. So here I just went to views, and then these are all the things that are dependent in that view, which is kind of cool. Yeah, the tree has just been amazing, and I've just been adding more and more things to it. We don't have any versions really because we just got started on it, but there's extended properties again. Just go right down the tree.
I'm getting this feeling that that people are interested and that they're excited and that they want to know how can they possibly get this fantastic product and at what price.
Sadly, we don't have time to talk about that. So
actually, you want to keep them in suspense for just a moment yet?
Yeah.
Yes.
We have a couple of questions.
Oh, online questions, okay.
Which I there we go. Okay. How to export a stored procedure from a server and import the generated script to another server, and does the script contain the specified version? Can we modify the version to what we expect? So the first part was how to export a stored procedure from a server and then import that to another server.
Oh, yeah, you can do that. Once you have the SSI built, we have a button that lets you export that to whatever server you want. Here we go. Okay, so under tools. Well, let me bring up a script. I'm not in a script. Now I'm in the script. Okay, here we go. So here's my commit version, update master database, or I can update a test database. Okay, so I've imported this script, and now I want to update something else. Here's my connection manager. I can have multiple connections in here. And then I can select that connection and then run that script on that connection. Okay, so I
So
think
you
that
can do a
answers-
one-off, or you can do the whole thing. So like
Right.
generally, we would ship our SSI file and use our Clarion program to call it on the open of the program and update all the scripts that way. But if you just have a one-off, you can just do it straight from the.
Yeah.
And-
We actually
and
have a separate utility that lets you do that like on a customer site or something like that without even using your program.
Right, that you
So,
can ship.
and the one-off then would or would not have the version, because that probably wouldn't matter if it's not.
When you updated it,
Yeah.
the versions we're storing in the, should it? It should. If you use the SSI file, yes.
Mhm.
If you just export it from here, like I was just showing, no.
Yeah. Okay.
Unless you've had it as a comment in the script, then it would.
Yes, and Mike Gorman asks, can this operate against a different DBMS? And so clearly he wasn't listening earlier, right?
Right.
We need to
MS
kind of
SQL only. It's MS SQL only.
yeah. Pay attention, Mike.
Oh, it looks like
Okay,
we're
all
about
right.
done.
So I'm thinking that there's no way that anybody has any interest, so you probably shouldn't even, like.
Yeah, there's probably
go
no
on with
interest,
this
but
now.
we'll probably be out there
But just in case.
to answer questions for you guys. We'll be available for the rest of the conference, and yeah, we've got to go. So here's basically 50% off, half off. Good pricing,
Half off.
half off. How long is that code good for? Through the end of the month.
Yeah, through the end of the month.
Yeah.
Right.
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 So get
And it
your
is,
orders
what you just saw, we have no install for this yet. We're expecting the install to be out within the next week or two. You can download it and try it out without, I know, I wish I had an install. Maybe I'll get one before the end of the conference, but
If I may, is a subscription model or is a perpetual model?
You get you get your download you can keep. It doesn't stop working, but you stop getting any updates after a
right.
year.
Yeah, so it's an annual
Yeah.
maintenance and it keeps you getting the updates.
Right, after a year, you don't get, this is good for 1 year of updates.
Correct.
You-
Right. And we had a 1-year return policy too. If you don't like it, you can return it within a year, which is a long
This is
time.
no risk.
No
This
risk.
is no risk.
Right.
The,
Thanks everybody. We sure enjoyed it.
The 1 year, just extend it.
We'll tack it on.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Great, thanks very much.